progressive soapbox. So I wanted to finish up the one I did yesterday on organizing workers, because I think it's an important one. I want to start in a different place though. What does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to be a person? And if you woke up this morning and you had no entanglements, your needs were met, what would you do for that particular day? What would you do for that particular life? Ultimately, that life seems absolutely foreign from the life that we have now. But understand that life seems foreign only because we allow that life to seem foreign. Our reality, our lives, those things can be whatever we, as a society, decide that they are. For whatever reason, people have taken on this task of living in a hallucination. And in living in a hallucination, the full expression of what it means to be a person. All the things that make you, you. Not you being subordinated and turned into some kind of robot to do a particular task for somebody else to get a huge amount of cash. That is not your purpose in being. Your purpose in being can be far more than that. That's all I'm saying. I look at these people in these jobs, myself included, and you're doing something, and it's not socially necessary, and yet you're doing a particular task. Who you are as a person, for the most part, is filtered into these tiny degrees of use. When these other areas of yourself, for the most part, have to be either, thrown away or used in some other capacity. I'm making this point that life doesn't have to be this way, nor should life be this way. We're working in a system that has incentive structures that continually push people to do things that they don't necessarily want to do for other people to profit. That's a problem. That's a problem. When I'm making this point of organizing workers, I'm not doing that willy-nilly. I'm saying, for the most part, this country is based on workers. We've created an economic system that does work just for the sake of work. You're not doing it because you need food. For the most part, you're doing it because you need a living. But the work that you're doing has no social value other than to give somebody else's profit. That's the point I'm making. We need to come to this kind of decision that labor is a pain in the ass. And because labor is a pain in the ass, we should create society in a way to find a way to get that labor done while allowing people to live their lives. If you have enough to get your needs met, all of this excess that's created is just created for the sake of being created. Do you realize we have a finite planet? Finite. That means it's not infinite. You don't have infinite supplies on this particular planet. There are not infinite resources. And yet the goal of profit is to use those resources as fast as possible. Not because they're creating any kind of real use value to somebody, but purely for the profit of somebody else. They're destroying the world for an imaginary substance. That imaginary substance giving them what they consider to be power. The system is a Ponzi scheme. And ultimately, we're caught in the middle of it. What I'm proposing is organization of workers. That's what I'm proposing. Look, any kind of political clout, any kind of political power that you're trying to take is done with masses. You need masses of people with something in common. I'm making the point that the thing that's in common is economics. Majority of the country works in low-wage jobs. Those low-wage jobs are low-wage in many degrees because the profit is being kicked up to the top. 95% of the profits in Obama's term went to the top 1%. We do not have an issue of scarcity. I need to emphasize that. We do not have a situation where there is not enough to go around. We have a situation where people are hoarding the majority of it. That is a difference between those things. So you have 100 slices of pizza, one person comes in and takes 95 slices. That is an amazing thing. That is an amazing thing. And yet, you have somebody else who's working 40 hours a week and still needs some kind of public service because the company they work for is paying them so little, and yet they're making billions. There's a problem with the system. And the fact that workers know they're being screwed over, know they're being exploited, and yet they don't necessarily have... I think the question always becomes, well, what do I do? And ultimately, I do need to eat. I do need a house. I do need something to take care of my kid. I have entanglements. I can't have a goddamn revolution that have entanglements. I understand that. I do understand that. But that doesn't necessarily stop you from political alignment. That doesn't stop political alignment. What I mean is, an organization that goes with this idea of we're organizing workers throughout the country. We're working on an economic basis. I don't give a shit about your identity issues at all. You can hate my guts. I still want your political alignment in this particular case. And you come up with a system that sets a floor on what those politicians would do. You have it all across the country, every city, every state. And look, I'm not saying it's easy to do, but I am saying that you go from place to place to place to place. You contact one Walmart worker, you contact another one, another, the person in Burger King, the person in McDonald's, the person in 7-Eleven. All those people are in the same boat. All those people could be different races, genders, sexes. One thing in common, all of those people are getting exploited. That's the one thing in common. If you make it clear to those people that they're being exploited, you can get those people in alignment. That's the point I'm making. That's what I want to do. I just have no clue how to do that. I have no clue how to do that. It's like, how do you impart your vision on the world to a bunch of other people to get them to align in this particular way? I suspect, like I said, identity issues will have to be off the table. This is purely focused on economics. Because if you do it right, you can constrain both parties. You can drag the Republican Party back to the left. If you do it right. If you have enough people that say, yeah, no, you're not getting my vote, and you say it to both, meaning a lot of the people who are in your camp are also Republicans, because believe it or not, Republicans also. There's a difference between the Republican that you meet on the street and the crazy asshole that you meet in Washington, D.C. The crazy asshole in D.C. is not the same guy as the guy who's on the street. I've seen a Ted Cruz being on the street, talking to Trump supporters, and they are joking him. They're laughing at him. They're calling the guy a fraud and everything else. Now, there's irony in calling them a fraud and yet supporting Trump. But still, those people understand that they understood they were getting screwed over. They understood it. Far left understands it. Their anger is in the wrong place, but they do at least get it. The left purely gets it, even though they have no clue what to do about it. I'm saying the lightning rod to this is workers. If you can organize a situation where you're talking to one worker after the next, and you get those workers in some kind of framework, whether it be a website that all of them can communicate on, whether it's summits that all of them go to, what you want to do is create a movement of workers. That is the only way you can hold people politically accountable. It is a force. If you have a percentage of this country that is literally in political alignment, that is a political revolution. That is literally a political revolution. My fear is you need something where somebody's working on it constantly. It's not a part-time thing. It's, if you think about the movements in this country, you have figureheads. Those figureheads work tirelessly on one specific task. Malcolm, Martin Luther King, those guys weren't working part-time and doing something else. They understood that the goal was, we need to change this country, fundamentally change this country. That was their task. That's what they did. And this country did fundamentally change from that particular movement being pushed in that particular way. I'm saying that maybe the problem is not necessarily having a figurehead in that sense. Maybe Occupy Wall Street died because it didn't have a figurehead. It didn't have somebody working tirelessly in one specific task to create one specific movement to get something accomplished. Concrete. Not this decentralized thing. No. Concrete. Fall in line. Fall in line. You have a task. Fall in line and get the shit done. I'm thinking that is the point, and that is the goal. I am going to find some way to do that. I'm absolutely going to find some way to do that. I find that to be an interesting task. I mean, granted, to me, this stuff becomes chess at some level. But if you're looking for a way to change things, I don't necessarily, look, just as Democrats, yeah, maybe, brand new Congress, maybe. Ultimately, you're still functioning in the same political system with the same political parties. Good luck. I'm thinking what you need is pressure from the outside, which means you need something else pushing on the institution itself. And you're not pushing on it for new law or new regulation or tax gain. You're pushing it to change the goddamn system completely. Change it. It's, look, your issues will never change in this particular capitalistic model. And I'm not saying with these guys going in balls out saying we're going to kill capitalism. That's not what I mean. I'm saying putting in one policy after the next that undermines the system itself. The more you undermine the system, the more equitable the system is going to be for the people who are in that particular country. So yeah, you can raise the Social Security level, raise the rate that they charge on Social Security on those incomes, give that people more money in that sense. Yes, you're going to have a universal basic income because ultimately the jobs aren't coming back. You have people making 95% of the wealth going to the top 1%, and are you telling me that it's fair? And are you telling me that some of that money shouldn't have gone back to the people who are in this particular country? Yes, the idea that resources are from this particular country should go back to the people who are in this country. Now, if we want to call it a universal basic income, we can call it dividend and say, we were born here, the resources that are taken from here are our resources also. And the profits on those resources should be given to the people of this particular country. All of the people of this country, not just the private interests who took those particular resources. Who gave them those resources? Where did they get those resources from? Who gave them the authorization to go into the ground to do those things? Who gave the government the authorization to go into the ground to do those things? I'm saying all of this stuff is built on somebody taking something. And I'm saying this country is common heritage, meaning all of us live here. They shouldn't get the opportunity to rape those resources without giving that money back to the people who are here. And look, before you say, whoa, dude, that sounds like Sarah Palin did the same thing in Alaska. Just saying. Sarah Palin had an 80% approval rate. She did the same thing in Alaska. She understood that the people in Alaska live there. Those resources were taken from there, which means any profits from those particular resources should go also to the people who live there. I'm saying the same thing applies to this particular country, the United States. The resources, the vast amount of resources that are taken from here, the profits from those resources should have a dividends check to go to each and every American. Right off the bat, you're attacking one of the issues of poverty. The goal is to eliminate that stuff, not to just dick around with it. If you see a problem, you need to fix it, fix the goddamn problem. If you're going to change Washington, change Washington. Stop dicking around the edges with raising taxes or this or that. Go for the heart of the issue. Go for the heart of the issue. Undermine their influence and their ability to control people. If you're giving people that money and you're putting that money in their pocket, those people have more of an opportunity to be politically inclined. Right off the bat, you're helping and directly affecting people's lives. You can do policy to do that. You don't have to necessarily murder capitalism in one full swoop. You go for one item at a time. Yes, we're giving people health care. Yes, you're getting free college. Those things are aspects of the system. Yes, you're going to get a dividends check because you were born here. You're an American. You have value. We don't necessarily want to see you in poverty. Yes, those are things you can do. Those are things you can do. For that, you need a movement to compel that in the same way that there was a movement for Roosevelt to compel those particular changes. I don't see that movement with people just doing brand new Congress with just Justice Democrats. I don't see that. I don't see that at all. I don't see you making those changes. I don't see you having a back amount of force in the population itself. You need a movement for that. You need a movement for that. That money is best spent trying to organize workers. That's what I would prefer to do. So, and ultimately, all this stuff, the point of this stuff, understand, there's a higher point. It's not politics for the sake of politics. It's politics to allow people to actually be a person, not a cog in a goddamn wheel. We're more than this. We can be more than this. I know it's hard to see past this particular system, but when you see a vision of something else, you're like, hey, this looks kind of weird. I don't particularly like this thing. We can change this. The hardest thing in the world is getting to people's head that this is not the reality that they need to live in. It's not the reality we need to live in. This reality is choice. You're making a choice to live in this particular existence. That's all I'm saying. If you want to take power from politics, you need to understand the reason for it is ultimately people's lives. The tactics that you're using to take that particular power, whether it's movement, whether it's putting somebody in office, is a means to an end, but it's not the end itself. That's all I'm saying. You need a movement. You need a movement. Organized workers. That's where it should start. I'm going to try to crowdfund this. If anybody have any advice, any information on how to even start for something like this. But yeah, I'm going to try to do it. I'm going to try to fund a system to try to create an organization to organize workers, going from place to place to place. And hope to spread kind of like a virus. If we want to change things, we've got to start somewhere. And I strongly suspect that the exploitation that goes on is for the most part a tinderbox. And I think it's one that's, if you hit it the right way, you can start a fire. Let it burn. Let it burn. It needs to change. This particular society needs to change. There's way too much suffering in this society, in this culture. I mean, granted, around the world and all, but my particular home is here. It doesn't have to be this way. Yeah, it doesn't have to be this way. So let's change it. Let's change it. Like Tim Black said, it's a call to arms. Fair enough. It's like, mount up. I will keep this updated. But if anybody has advice on how to crowdsource this, or even advice on how to even start for something like this, let me know. I'm all ears. Alright guys, if you enjoyed the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and you can always support the work through Patreon.